Hello everybody, my name is Vendetta, and today I'm making a guide to help players who are between the levels of 30 and 70, otherwise known as my official mid-game guide for TDX. This is going to help the players who are, like I said, between the levels of 30 and 70. This is going to give you some towers to prioritize purchasing. This is going to give you some good modes to grind in order to help level you up and get those towers you need. I'll also be including some more generic tips in here as well. Now, like I said, this video is prioritizing the people who are between the levels of 30 and 70. However, there may be people outside of this range that do find some useful tips here. And if you're beyond level 70, maybe you're a little bit higher level, maybe you're level 80 or 90. Don't worry, I'm making a guide very soon on the higher level players, such as level 70 plus. Maybe all the way up to like 120 or something, just in order to help players with that last bit of progression. Anyways, let's get right into this. There's a little bit to talk about here, so let's just jump right in, shall we? The first thing I want to start off with is the modes you should be playing. There are, like I said in the last guide, quite a lot of modes in TDX, and it can be a little bit overwhelming trying to find which one you're going to play, which one's the best rates for gold, which one's the best for your time, all that good stuff. Well, don't worry, I'm here to help you. As a mid-game player, you should be prioritizing just maybe 2 or 3 game modes. These game modes are going to be the Elite game mode. Specifically, I want to talk a lot about this one, Expert later on, and in this Events tab, the Christmas Part 2 event. I'm going to talk about each of those right now. Let's start with Elite. So Elite is a big jump from Intermediate, as Elite and Expert have both been reworked to more fit the meta of the game now. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is Elite is much harder than Intermediate is, so it's going to be a bit of a step up, but Elite is also one of the best ways that you can grind some mid-game gold experience, so you should be using towers that can help you beat Elite. Elite can be very difficult at first, but you don't have to play it solo. You could play with some matchmaking, have some other players around your level join you. And I'm sure there's also a very good guide somewhere on YouTube that you can watch about how to beat Elite with the cheapest loadout possible, whatever it might be. But once you know that you can beat Elite, your number one priority should be farming Elite. And then once you know you can beat it pretty consistently, try getting some of the medals on a bunch of the different maps. As I explained in the beginner guide, medals give you that extra 80% gold when you beat a mode on a map you've never done that mode on before. So what you should be doing is going up to this achievements button, clicking the maps option here, scrolling through and seeing all the maps that you haven't beaten Elite on yet, which Elite, if you're wondering, is these golden medals, the third one from the left. This method is going to help you get so much more gold, so much XP. It's, believe me, one of the best ways you can grind for now. The next mode I want to talk about is the Christmas Part 2 game mode that I mentioned earlier. The Christmas Part 2 event is actually pretty good for grinding all around. It can give some pretty decent gold, not as much as Elite, but there are 2 things you should be using it for, which are crystals and tokens. Now, crystals and tokens, you might not need tokens depending on when you're playing and if or not you have a battle pass, but you should be looking at the crystals. The crystals are a second currency in Tower Defense X, second to gold, and with those crystals, you can actually go into the shop and purchase these here towers. Specifically, the one I want to look at is the Shield Tower. This is the cheapest crystal tower for, I think, a little bit under 3k, if I'm not wrong. The Shield Tower is going to be amazing, especially if you can get your hands on it pretty early in your progression. I know the Shield Tower got nerfed recently, however, don't doubt this thing. Shield Tower is going to make things like playing Expert, next mode I'm going to talk about, a lot easier. So it might not be better than Elite for things like gold and experience, but it is worth it to keep in mind that you will be getting crystals from the Christmas Part 2 game mode. And lastly, the game mode I want to talk about is, of course, Expert mode. Now, Expert mode is actually quite the challenge. And the only reason I am including Expert in this guide is for the people who are close to the end of that 30 to 70 range, like 60 to maybe 65 at the least. You could maybe attempt this with some other players if you're around level 50, however, I'm not sure if you'd be able to beat it. You could definitely give it a try though. I think it would be very worth it. Expert is very similar to Elite, except just so much more efficient. You're going to get way better gold, you're going to get way better XP, and it's kind of like the advantages of both Elite and the Christmas Part 2 game mode that I listed here, because it gives good gold, it gives good XP, and it gives pretty decent tokens, if I'm not mistaken, and it also is going to give you crystals. Expert does give crystals, so you can use that to get yourself that shield tower. So do try your luck a little bit later on in your progression of mid-game at Expert, maybe with some other players, or maybe you could try it solo with the right towers. Speaking of the right towers, which towers should you be buying? In my previous guide, I gave some early game towers that new players should be buying. Well, this video is no different. Let's give you some towers that you should prioritize buying in order to help make this a little bit of a faster progression. This here is the Railgunner. This is one of the first towers I actually recommend you buy once you get to around that 30 to 40 mark. The Railgunner might seem like it comes second to the Juggernaut tower, however that could not be further from the truth. Railgunner is going to obliterate things, especially in Expert mode. He's not that great for Elite, but like I said, if you want to try Expert, definitely get Railgunner. This kind fellow here is the Laser Gunner. This one's going to be a bit better for both Elite and Expert compared to the Railgunner we just had. The Laser Gunner is a good tower that can do some stun, also has stealth reveal, and even technically splash. The Laser Gunner is a very powerful early game tower, and he actually has stealth detection when you first place him, so he has great potential for early game Expert, early game Elite, and just overall as a tower as a whole. This here is the Medic. The Medic is going to be a very useful tower, mostly for Expert, however, he does have some good use in Elite. For Expert, obviously, Medic is highly recommended, just like Railgunner, as he is basically necessary in order to keep most of your towers alive. However, in Elite, he's not too bad either, as you can just go down his bottom path here and get that crits ability in order to power up your towers. The next tower here is the Machine Gunner, which has a level 50 lock. This just means that you need to be level 50 in order to be able to purchase this guy. The Machine Gunner is very powerful, and although it has been nerfed a few times, I still think it's very worth mentioning the Machine Gunner in this guide. Machine Gunner's top path can deal with air enemies and crowds alike, while bottom path has insane range and very powerful DPS. What more could you want from a single tower? This guy could actually be your primary DPS for both Elite and Expert, so like I said, I do recommend Machine Gunner. Next up, I recommend getting the Mobster. The Mobster is less of a DPS tower and more of a supportive / backup DPS tower. On the bottom path, Mobster can improve your economy by giving you money when towers nearby perish, or by giving you extra money with its bounty ability. On top path, it spawns much better units along with doing some good DPS himself. This is the Ghost. The Ghost is level locked to a whopping 60, however, it is highly recommended that you purchase the Ghost when you can. The Ghost is essentially like Operator, but a lot better. Ghost can provide some support by revealing enemies with a powerful drone that it can spawn, or, on its other path, has a stealth grenade that it can throw onto nearby towers to make them stealthed. On both paths, she is already stealthed herself, so she has great survivability to go with all of these supporting passives. Not only this, it is great air detection, good stealth detection, and overall good early to mid game. The final tower I recommend you purchase is the XWM turret. Similar to Ghost, this tower has a level lock of 60, so you will have to be level 60 in order to purchase this, and it is quite expensive. If I remember correctly, it's about 32,000 gold, but don't be mistaken, that hefty price tag and level requirement is very worth it. The XWM turret, similar to Railgunner, isn't very good for Elite mode, but it is going to be very good for Expert, and it's going to be very good for future modes that you'll take on, such as Nightmare and Endless. Alright, so I've given you quite a few towers that you can work on purchasing. If I didn't mention one, then it's advised just to not go for it for now. However, the next thing I want to talk about isn't particularly set for mid-game players, but I think it is worth mentioning given the current event that's going on. So we have a battle pass going on currently for the Halloween 2025 event. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about battle passes, as I kind of just skipped over it in the early game guide. Battle passes are quite simple. For some events, there will be battle passes that you can progress through, and the way you do that is by collecting tokens that I mentioned earlier, and you can see that here, in order to reach the next level, in which you'll be able to claim some pretty awesome rewards, like skins, emotes, and even event towers. I highly recommend that, since there is, as of making this video, currently that Halloween event going on, that you do try and progress through this. There is some amazing rewards that you'll never be able to get again for free, so I highly recommend that you come through here, get all of this stuff, and have a chance at getting the Shock Trooper Tower. For every event battle pass, the event towers inside of the event passes never return once the event is over. So once this 29-day timer is up, you won't be able to get this tower, and instead it will be replaced with some other reward like gold or XP. There are also the older battle passes that you can view in this all menu. You can go ahead and purchase those if you want. There are some also pretty cool skins. However, just like I mentioned before, you will not be able to get the towers. Level 17 here is where the commander in the Tower Battles battle pass was, but now that the event is over, it's just replaced with some gold. So do try and level up those battle passes, get some free rewards. They're very nice to have. Anyways, that's going to be it for the mid-game guide. Overall, just keep some of the same things in mind from early game, or just things that you've learned overall, as well as a little recap here for you. I recommend that you play the Elite mode to start. Beating that can give you some very good gold and XP income. If you want to work on getting some crystals, or maybe even tokens, you can play the Christmas 2 normal. And last but certainly not least, if you want to have a try at expert, perhaps getting some of those towers that I mentioned before are going to be beneficial in trying expert mode. Those towers you should be purchasing are Railgunner, Laser Gunner, Medic, Machine Gunner, Mobster, Ghost, and XWM Turret. Make sure you do that metal grinding for Elite, and if you are Super Pro and you can do Expert, get those Expert medals. Trust me, you are not going to regret it. And we also went over a little bit of how battle passes themselves work. Try not to miss out on these free rewards while you can, or else you will have to pay that 500 Robux fee in order to purchase the battle pass if you want to continue it. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope this guide helped even just one person at all. This guide is more meant to help players who, as I said, are in the middle of the TDX progression, somewhere between level 30 and level 70. This is a little bit where the game can get a little bit more difficult, but trust me, it's worth it. Once you get through to that end game, a lot of the good content is waiting for you. But as I mentioned, this is the end of the video, so thank you all so very much for watching. This has been Vendetta. I will catch you all next time on the TDX channel. Bye-bye, everybody!